I trudged through the door, worn out from a brutal day, figuring I'd just crash into a peaceful night. But instead of the usual chatter, a creepy quiet hit me, one that didn't fit in my own house. There they were, my mom, my wife, my boys, and my buddy Philip, all parked on the couch, faces blank as stone, eyes dodging mine like I was a stranger. Something about the room felt twisted, off-kilter. Trouble was brewing, and it wasn't the normal vibe I'd get coming home late. It wasn't the faint whiff of Denise's latest kitchen disaster clinging to the air either. And it wasn't just my kid sitting there rigid, like he was waiting for a punch to land. Nah, this ran deeper, something intentional hung heavy in the silence. I dropped my briefcase by the door, shrugging the ache out of my shoulders, trying to figure out what I was walking into. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my tone level even though my gut was churning. Nobody piped up right away, and that pause sent a shiver crawling down my back. Then Miles, my oldest, coughed out a noise and dropped a bomb I'll never shake loose. "Dad, take a seat," he said. "You gotta face it, things are different now. You ain't running this family no more." Uncle Philip stepped up as the dad around here. Those words cut me like a dull blade. I blinked hard, thinking maybe my ears were playing tricks. "Come again," I said, voice steady as a rock, even though a wildfire was blazing up inside me. Miles wouldn't meet my stare, just tapped his knee with his fingers, that twitchy habit he's had since he was a kid. But my eyes weren't on him anymore, they locked onto Denise, the one person who should have jumped in. She just sat there, hands clasped tight in her lap, face a mask, not surprised, not sorry, just nothing. She was in on it. They all were. Mom shifted a little, letting out a sigh like she'd seen this train wreck coming for miles. She wasn't shocked or pissed, just part of the deal. Philip, my supposed best pal, didn't even twitch, sprawled out like he was chairing a casual meeting. He looked right at home, too damn cozy, like he'd been calling shots from my spot for a while now. It slammed into me hard, this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. They'd cooked this up, planned it out behind my back. I stared at my boys, praying one of them would crack, show a hint of second thoughts, maybe even guilt. But Miles stood firm, and Evan, my quiet younger kid, didn't flinch either, just held my gaze, backing it up without a word. I sucked in a slow breath, shoving down the fury boiling under my skin. I've spent years perfecting control, facing down cutthroat lawyers, dismantling their cases like a pro. But this? This wasn't a courtroom showdown. This was a full-on ambush, and I'd stumbled right into it. "Philip's more of a dad to you now?" I echoed, voice flat as pavement. Miles gave a tight nod. "Yeah." I didn't glance at Philip yet, couldn't bring myself to give him that much. Instead, I swung back to Denise. "Denise," I said, letting a razor edge slip into my tone, "you got anything to toss into this mess?" Her cool act slipped for a second, she sucked in a breath, fussing with her dress like that'd smooth over what she'd done. She wasn't ready for me to push back. "Score one for me. I think we should all just," she started, but I cut her off with a raised hand. "Nope. No canned lines, no dodging. Tell me straight, Denise, when did I stop being your husband and their dad? Did it fade out slow, or did you sign me off one night while you were tucked in next to me?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out, she was stuck. That's 2 points in my corner. She figured I'd either blow up or fold. Instead, I was ice cold, playing it smart. Then I finally faced Philip, the guy I'd trusted with my life, who'd held my kids as newborns, raised a glass at my wedding, cheered my wins, and mourned my losses right alongside me. My brother, or so I thought. Now he lounged in my house, cool as can be, waiting for me to admit he'd beat me. He wanted me to lose it. I flashed a little grin, slow, creepy, the kind that rattles guys across the table in court. Philip's smug look flickered, just for a second. "That's 3 for me." I let out a breath, stepping back, tugging my cuffs straight like this was all just a weird blip in my night. The room felt like it was choking me, walls creeping closer. But I'd be damned if I let them see me bleed. No way they'd get the thrill of knowing they'd hit me where it hurt. Instead, I spun toward the door, ready to bail. Got anything to add? Philip piped up, his tone slick, steady, dripping with arrogance. I stopped dead, cocking my head just a touch, letting the silence drag out and tighten like a noose. Then I let out a low, smug laugh, knowing I'd rattled him. That was win number 4 in my book. Without tossing another word their way, I strolled out. 'Cause this wasn't the night they broke me, nope, this was the night I started gearing up. By the time they caught on to what I had cooking, they'd be way too late to stop it. I eased the door shut behind me and lingered in the hallway, ear perked for a beat. Not a peep from inside at first, then a rustle, a couple of soft sighs, like they'd dodged a bullet. They figured I was done for good. That cinched it for me. They'd braced for me to lose it, yelling, begging, demanding they explain themselves. Thing is, they had no clue who they were dealing with. I ambled down the hall, passing those framed family shots that now hit me like a cruel joke, fake smiles trapped in glass. Those grins, that forced cheer, the whole loyalty act, my wife, my mom, my boys, and Philip staring back at me. The backstabbing didn't even shock me the most. Nah, it was how they acted like it was no big deal, like they just shrugged me off and carried on without a second thought. I slipped into my study, closing the door with that same eerie calm I'd held onto in the living room. Plopped down in my chair, I leaned back, hands clasped nice and tidy in front of me. Then I let out a long breath. The anger was there, simmering, itching to bust loose. Man, it was screaming for me to tear that living room apart, flip the coffee table, smash their wine glasses, grab Philip by the collar and smear his cocky grin across the driveway. But that kind of outburst. It's over quick. Pain dulls. Cut scab over. Real payback? That's gotta last forever. So I told myself to cool it and play the long game. It all clicked right then. I'd missed the red flags, not 'cause I was clueless, but 'cause I'd wanted to believe in them. Mom always had a grip on me, way too tight. She'd nudged Denise my way, not outright, not with a shove, but she'd painted the picture, made me see her as the perfect fit, solid wife material, a lady who'd stick by me and build something real. And for a while, she was, until she decided being mine didn't cut it anymore. I leaned over the desk, fingers drumming a light beat on the wood. Philip, though, why him out of every guy on the planet? I'd toyed with the idea of cheating before. Comes with the territory when you're a lawyer, watching marriages crash and burn, secrets spilling out in hushed tones behind locked doors. I used to tell myself I'd spot it if it happened to me, that I'd sense the shift. But I didn't, not 'cause it was some one-off slip, but 'cause it was a slow handover, a calculated swap, a takeover they'd mapped out step by step. They screwed up, though, they read me wrong. My quiet exit? They took it as me giving in. Figured I was too worn out to push back, too tied down to cut loose. Truth is, I was already checked out, not physically, not yet, but in my head and my heart, I'd cut the cord. And when a guy stops giving a damn, when he quits thinking there's anything worth saving, that's when he turns into a real threat. That was their first misstep. Their second slip-up. They thought they'd stripped me bare, left me with nothing to fight for. But they forgot I'm a lawyer, power ain't about feelings, it's about what you can hold over somebody. And I had plenty to work with, more than they'd ever guess. The plan started taking shape. I fished my phone out of my pocket, thumbing through my contacts. First up, I rang my money guy. Joseph, I said, voice cool as steel, lock down every penny in our joint accounts, starting now. He paused, unsure. You serious, sir? That cuts off your wife's access too, yeah, I know damn well what it does. Got it. Click. Step 1, locked in. Next, I dialed my attorney. "Colin," I said, smoother than ever, "get me a divorce filed, fast track it, no wiggle room." A beat of silence, then a huff. "Papers'll be set by sunrise." Step 2, in the bag. Then, at last, I dialed up an old buddy, somebody who owed me big and knew how to wreck lives for a living. With that call, the gears started grinding. I kicked back in my chair, eyes locked on the ceiling, feeling the heft of what I was about to unleash. They figured they'd come out on top. They thought I'd slunk off to nurse my bruises. But I wasn't bolting, I was loading up. And when they finally clocked what was headed their way, it'd be way past the point of dodging it. Come morning, the chaos rolled in, not with a bang or a flash, but with a dead quiet that hit harder. It kicked off when Denise tried her usual money shuffle online, maybe a house bill or one of those fancy, must-have buys she swore we couldn't live without. But this time, instead of the cash flowing smooth, the screen flashed red, transaction denied. She scrunched her face, hit refresh, figuring it was a glitch. Same damn warning popped up. She grabbed her phone, hopping between accounts, punching in numbers. Denied. Every single time. Denise ain't dumb, she smelled trouble fast. So she snatched her coat, hopped into that Mercedes I'd gifted her for her birthday, and peeled out to the bank, where the truth smashed her square in the jaw. All the accounts were locked tight. "Mrs. Lennox," the manager said, squirming in his seat like a kid caught sneaking cookies. "Yeah," she barked, already steaming. "What's the holdup?" "My account's flagged for some security nonsense, I need it fixed, now." The guy stalled, clearly hating his life right then. "Sorry, ma'am, that ain't happening." Her eyes turned to slits. "Why the hell not?" He sucked in a breath, bracing himself. "Your husband put a freeze on every joint account. His lawyer sent over the paperwork, it's airtight. We can't let you in without his say-so." Her breath snagged in her throat. "That's insane, I've had those accounts forever." "Sure have," the manager said, nodding like he was humoring her, "but not anymore." A cold dread started creeping into her stare. It sank in slow and deep, I'd shut her out completely. She never saw it coming, not after all these years, not after everything we'd stacked up together. She bet I'd crumble, but nah, I was choking the life out of their game. First, her credit cards started tanking. By the time Denise stormed out of the bank, she was on the horn with Philip, hands trembling like leaves in a storm. I'd bet it went something like, "Philip, he's locked it all down, what now?" But Philip had his own mess brewing. While she was freaking out over the bank, I'd flipped the switch to phase 2, her credit lines. As she was tearing into the bank lobby, I was axing every card she could touch. Later, when she tried flashing her platinum at some coffee joint on the way home, denied. Swapped to another card, denied. Dug out that emergency one stashed in her bag, denied again. That's when the panic really dug its claws in. Philip's world started caving in too. While Denise was flailing, Philip was strolling into his own private hell. Truth is, he'd built that business of his mostly 'cause of me, not 'cause he was some brainiac or money wizard, but 'cause I'd pulled levers for him, hooked him up with clients, opened doors to the big shots, the cash cows, the markets that mattered. And now, I was yanking it all out from under him like a cheap rug. One by one, his heavy-hitter investors bailed. First, that construction outfit that had been tossing him work for years. They axed every deal on the horizon. Then his top supplier shot over a stiff little email, "Sorry, pal, due to stuff we can't control, we're done, right now." Philip didn't get it yet, but his company was on life support with hours to go. By noon, 2 more investors bolted. By supper, his cash was gasping for air. And when he peeked at his own accounts, red across the board. I didn't just kick him out of my life, I snipped the strings keeping him alive. Their whole setup came crashing down. While Denise and Philip were scrambling in their separate corners, my boys, Miles and Evan, were about to get their own wake-up call. Fact is, they never really got how good they had it, all thanks to me. The Ivy League classes, the slick cars parked out front. My sweat paid for that. But they'd flipped on me anyway. Called Philip their dad. Swapped me out in their heads before I even stepped out of that room. So I handed M what they asked for. I let M see what life's like without me footing the bill. The first thing I yanked, their college money. Miles, who was deep into his master's program, got a nasty surprise in his inbox. Hey, your tuition's overdue, pay up in 7 days or you're outta here. Evan, my younger one who'd gotten comfy coasting on Easy Street, checked his account and found his monthly cash stash had vanished. No heads up, no note, just poof, gone. They both rang up the bank, probably frantic, and got the same icy slap their mom did. Your old man's cut you off, those funds ain't yours to touch anymore. All hell broke loose. By the time the sun dipped low, my phone started buzzing off the hook. Denise called. My boys called. Philip called. Even my mom, the lady who brought me into this world and helped cook up half this mess, tried to get through. I didn't pick up once, not yet, not till they'd soaked in the full sting of it, not till they felt the hole I'd left, not till they got it through their skulls that the guy they'd tossed aside was the only reason they'd ever had a damn thing. By night, I'd bet they were all huddled back in that living room, the same spot where they'd drawn their line in the sand. Only now, the vibe was flipped. They weren't calling the shots anymore, they were floundering, sinking fast. And me? I was just kicking back, watching him go under. Philip, meanwhile, was holed up in his office, sipping that overpriced coffee he loved, totally clueless that his empire was crumbling. For years, he propped up his business on one thing, who he knew, not grit, not smarts, just connections. And guess what? Those connections were all mine. From day one of his little venture, he'd leaned hard on my pull, my clients, my investors, my good name. I'd propped him up 'cause back then, he was my best bud, damn near family. But now I was tearing him down, brick by brick. The first hit landed, his investors started bailing. Trouble kicked off with a ping, an email titled Contract Termination. Philip gave it a quick scan, brow furrowing as he read, Sorry, but due to some unexpected money issues, we're cutting ties with your outfit, starting now. His jaw clenched tight. That email came from one of his cash cows, the one that kept his books in the black. He dropped the phone on his desk, raking a hand through his hair, trying to shrug off the bad feeling gnawing at him. Probably thought it was a mix-up, something he could smooth over with a quick call. He punched in the number, plastering on a grin when his guy picked up. Yo, Chris, just peeked at that email, what's the deal? A long stretch of quiet, then Chris let out a heavy breath. Philip, hate to say it, man, but we're out, can't stick with you anymore. Philip's grip on the phone went vice-tight. What? Why? Everything was fine last week, what changed? A pause, then the gut punch reply, Daniel. The air turned to ice. What about him? Philip choked out. Chris stalled again, then dropped his voice low. Look, I don't know what went down between you two, but he's making it real clear, working with you's a losing bet now. Philip bolted up, knocking his coffee across the desk. That's nuts, he spat. Daniel wouldn't pull that, he would, Chris cut in, he's got clout, Philip, respect too. And between you and him? I'm picking him every damn time. Click. Deadline. The collapse kicked into gear. Philip stood there, phone still glued to his ear even after the call dropped, like he couldn't process it. No way this was real. Sure, I'm a guy who keeps it together, sharp, calculated, maybe even brutal in the courtroom, but tanking someone's whole life? That wasn't me, right? His phone buzzed again. Another investor bowing out. Then another, and another. By midday, 4 big clients had jumped ship. By 3, his suppliers wouldn't even pick up. By 5, his whole operation was choking on fumes. Then the kill shot landed, his licenses got yanked. Philip was still spinning when his secretary crept in, looking like she'd seen a ghost. Sir," she stammered, "we just got word from the licensing board." He glanced up, gut twisting hard. "Yeah, what?" She gulped, sliding a paper onto his desk like it was radioactive. He snatched it up, eyes locking on the first line. "As of today, your business licenses are toast, legal issues, conflicts of interest, ethical breaches, the works." The rest blurred into nothing. His company was done, dead in the water, signed, sealed, and buried. Philip finally got it. He slumped back in his chair, breath coming in short, shaky bursts. This wasn't some random streak of crap luck. This was a sniper shot, dead on and deliberate. And there was only one guy who could pull it off with that kind of precision, me, Daniel. His old pal, the brother he'd knifed in the back. Now Philip was figuring out the hard way that I don't just settle scores, I make damn sure you don't climb out of the hole. He tried reaching out in a panic. By the time Philip snapped out of his daze, his phone showed 69 missed calls. Half were Denise blowing up his line, the rest a mix of investors, staff, and clients, all freaking out, scrambling to piece together what was hitting the fan. And me? I hadn't picked up once. Philip clenched his jaw and stabbed my number again. Straight to voicemail, same as every try that day. "Hey, you've got Daniel Lennox. I'm tied up. Drop a message." Beep. He let out a harsh breath, fingers digging into the phone. "Daniel," he rasped, voice tight, "I don't know what you're pulling here, but you gotta knock it off." Quiet stretched out. He swallowed hard. "We need to hash this out, man, just hit me back, alright? This is out of hand." Click. Call over. Message ignored. Philip glared at his screen, heart hammering. For the first time ever, he was scared stiff. 'Cause I wasn't just pissed or swinging back, I was wiping him off the map, and he couldn't do a damn thing to stop me. That night, the house went dead silent, too still. Denise was parked in the living room, clutching her phone so hard her knuckles glowed white. The lamp next to her threw a weak, jittery light, barely cutting through the worry carved into her face. She dialed me over and over, nothing, not a peep back. Her hands shook as she tried Philip next, but she didn't even need the first ring to know what was coming. "The number you're calling ain't available." She let out a wobbly breath, glancing across the room. Miles was slumped on the couch, eyes glued to his laptop, but his fingers weren't moving. Some alert from his school had his screen locked up. Evan, though, couldn't sit, he was pacing like a caged animal. He never handled setbacks well, and right now, everything was falling apart. Denise knew it. The boys knew it. But nobody wanted to say it out loud, 'cause that'd mean owning up to the fact that I'd pulled off the unthinkable, that I'd torn their whole world to shreds. The college cash vanished. Miles hadn't said a word in over an hour, not since he logged into his student account to peek at his next tuition bill, not since that glaring red warning popped up, "Heads up, tuition's overdue. Pay now or you're toast." His gut flipped. No way that was right, he always got paid up front, never even had to think about it. But when he dug into his financials, his pulse kicked into overdrive. The funds were history. I'd yanked it all. He'd always figured, always trusted, that his schooling was a lock, that it'd be there no matter what, just like I'd always been. Now, he wasn't so sure about any of it. He flashed back to what they'd said last night, "Uncle Philip's more of a dad to us now." His stomach knotted up. He'd picked the wrong side. Evan's easy life went bust. Evan was the first to crack the quiet. "Mom," he barked, raking a hand through his hair, "I just tried gassing up, and my card got rejected. Again." Denise didn't even flinch, just kept staring at her phone, lost somewhere else. He snorted, pacing harder. Called the bank, guess what? My account's bone dry. He spun around, eyeing his mom and brother. Somebody gonna say it? Dad's screwing us over. Miles' jaw tightened, but he stayed mute. Denise, though, finally let out a slow sigh. Yeah, she admitted, he is. Evan barked out a sour laugh, flinging his hands up. Oh, perfect. So what did you expect? You let Uncle Philip stomp all over him, and now we're toast. Denise's head whipped toward him. I didn't let Philip do squat, she snapped. Your dad, she cut herself off, huffing hard. Your dad's just hitting back, that's it. Evan smirked, bitter as hell. Hitting back. Mom, get real, he's torching everything we've got. And for the first time that day, Denise bought it. The call that flipped it all, when the house phone blared, the whole room froze like a snapshot. Denise lunged for it so quick she damn near fumbled it to the floor. Daniel, she gasped, hopeful. But it wasn't me on the line, it was her mom, Martha, voice cutting like a blade, icy and harsh. Denise, she said, you better be sitting. Denise's brow creased, her grip tightening. What's up? Martha let out a heavy breath, like she was bracing for a punch, then dropped the bomb that made Denise's world spin, your dad's retirement savings. It's gone. Denise's throat turned to sandpaper. What? She croaked. Martha kept going, cool as steel. Checked it this morning, the accounts I handed over to Daniel to handle. Empty. Every dime's vanished. We're flat broke, Denise. Denise couldn't catch her breath. No way, that can't be. Daniel wouldn't, oh, really? Martha's tone sliced sharper. I'm pretty damn sure he would, and I'm betting he just did. Denise's head was a mess. Her folks had leaned on me for years, my investing know-how, my knack for keeping their cash safe and growing. Now it was dust. She shut her eyes tight. Her own mom and dad were eating the fallout of her screw-up. And for the first time since this mess kicked off, a new feeling hit her square in the chest, regret. It sank in deep, Denise hardly remembered hanging up, everything blurred together. Her mom's words still echoed, we're broke. Her boy's jab still stung, what did you think would happen? And louder than anything, my silence roared in her ears. She'd figured, dumb as it sounds now, that I'd just get mad, maybe shout, sling some blame her way. But I didn't. I just stepped back, pulled myself out of the picture. And by doing that, I torched it all. I let M pick their side, then showed M what that choice really cost. Sitting there, clutching her phone like it could save her, Denise finally got the ugly truth, I wasn't coming back. I wasn't gonna swoop in and patch things up. I wasn't fixing squat. And for the first time ever, she realized she'd never really known me. She knew the me who busted my ass for them, the me who loved her no matter what, the me who never pushed back. But the real me? That's the guy watching them fall apart right now, and I ain't lifting a finger to stop it. Their whole world caved in. That night, Denise lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying how fast it all went to hell. One night, that's all it took. Yesterday, she thought she had it all locked down. Today, she's got zilch. And the kicker? She's got nobody to point the finger at but herself. She'd never felt fear like this, not scraping by in college, sweating finals, not as a young mom, wiped out with twins wailing till dawn, not even when she clocked that she didn't love me like she used to. Nah, this was a different beast. This time, it wasn't just her neck on the line. This time, she'd lost it all, everything. And worse, she had no clue how to claw it back. The house was a madhouse, her boys losing it, her mom blowing up her phone, Philip gone dark. And the one guy who could turn it around, the guy she'd stabbed in the back. He wasn't picking up. She kept trying. Denise gave it one last shot. The phone rang and rang, straight to my voicemail. You've reached Daniel Lennox. I'm tied up. Leave a message. She bit down hard, choking back the lump in her throat. I was ghosting her. She fired off a text, nothing. Shot an email, crickets. Then she got desperate, grabbed the house line, 'cause surely I wouldn't dodge a call from home, right? Wrong. I did. And that's when it hit her, this ain't no bluff. I'm done for real. The boys started pleading. Miles and Evan never had to sweat cash before, it was always there, until now, until I, the guy they'd brushed off, swapped out, laughed at, ripped it all away. And they weren't taking it pretty. I don't get it, Miles mumbled, pacing tight circles. He can't just ditch us like this, can he? Evan snorted. Oh, wake up, Brainiac, he already did. Miles dragged a hand through his hair. Alright, but Mom, he wouldn't let us end up on the street, right? He's not gonna just leave us hanging. Denise swallowed, throat tight. She wanted to say no, wanted to promise I'd come around. But the words stuck, 'cause she wasn't sure anymore. Evan snatched his phone. Screw it, I'm calling him myself. Dialed me up, voicemail. Miles took a swing, voicemail. Then they started groveling. Dad, come on, we were just pissed off, we didn't mean it. You're still our dad, alright? Just call us back. Dad, please, we're sorry. We need you. But I didn't pick up. And that quiet cut deeper than anything I could have thrown back at them. Denise's final shot. Denise knew she had to track me down, make me hear her out, beg me to let it go. So she climbed into that car, the one I'd shelled out for, and hightailed it to my office. But when she got there, the receptionist blocked her cold. Sorry, Mrs. Lennox, the lady said, keeping her tone flat. Mr. Lennox said flat out he's not seeing you. My gut sank. Not see her, me, her husband. She plastered on a fake grin. Think you got that wrong, we're hitched, he'll talk to me. The receptionist paused, then slid an envelope her way with a quiet kind of pity. Denise grabbed it, hands jittery, heart pounding like a drum. She stepped back, tore it open, and yanked out one sheet, divorce papers, filed, signed, done. A little note tagged on, 5 words scrawled, nothing's left to patch up. Air wouldn't come. She'd lost everything. And me? I'd already checked out. Mom's heads up. That night, when Denise dragged herself home, Martha was waiting. She sat there in the living room, hands locked together, eyeing Denise as she stumbled in, looking like a ghost. She'd already pieced it together. Denise saw it in her stare, the letdown, the surrender, the "I told you so." I warned you to watch your step, Martha said, voice steady but biting. Denise let out a sharp, sour chuckle. Watch my step about what, Mom? Martha sighed, shaking her head slow. About crossing a guy like Daniel. Denise balled her fists. You said, I said, Martha cut in smooth as silk, men adapt. I said your dad adapted. That don't mean Daniel would. She pinned Denise with a hard, icy glare. I laid out what you had to do to hold on to him. Instead, you let your ego tank it all. Denise grit her teeth. I just wanted to breathe free. Martha nodded. Well, you got it now. How's it treating you? Denise didn't answer, 'cause truth is, it felt like a nightmare. Philip snapped. By midnight, Philip hit his breaking point. His company was toast. His bank accounts were bleeding dry. His best buddy, me, had crushed him flat. And right then, it clicked why, he'd earned it. I'd trusted him, built him up, and he'd stabbed me in the back. But he wasn't gonna roll over. So he took the last swing he had, jumped in his car, roared over to my place, charged up the steps, and hammered on the door. "Daniel," he bellowed. "Get out here and face me." Dead quiet. Then, slow as hell, the door creaked open. There I was, cool, unfazed, stone cold. Philip's fire flickered. 'Cause the guy staring him down wasn't raging or yelling or chasing payback. I'd already won. And Philip? He was already a dead man walking. I cocked my head a bit. "What's your play here, Philip?" I asked, voice level. He swallowed hard. "You trashed me." I gave a nod. "Yep." His fists tightened. "You had no damn right." I stepped closer, a quiet threat in my stance. "I had every right," I said low. And Philip, first time ever, felt real fear. 'Cause I wasn't just squaring up, I was making sure he'd never climb back. One last plea, Denise dialed me up that night, one final stab, one last grovel. "Daniel, please, I messed up. We all did. Just talk to me. Give me one more shot." Nothing came back. And this time, nothing ever would. 'Cause I was long gone, and I wasn't glancing in the rearview. I watched the phone buzz on the table, Denise again. Didn't pick up, not 'cause I missed it, not 'cause I was swamped, but 'cause she didn't rate her response anymore. I let it hum, till it quit. Then, a minute later, another call, Miles, then Evan, then her mom, one right after the other. I let them all roll to voicemail. For the first time in 19 years, I didn't owe them jack, not my time, not my cool, not my presence, and damn sure not my mercy. The showdown they didn't expect, I knew it wasn't over yet. I knew Denise too well, she'd pull something. So when she barged into my office the next morning, I wasn't shocked. She blew past the receptionist before anybody could grab her, slammed the door shut behind her. I leaned back in my chair, taking her in. Her eyes were bloodshot, hands trembling, she was desperate now. Good. She'd earned that. "Daniel," she croaked, voice rough, "please." I didn't say a word, just stared, letting the quiet chew her up. She sucked in a shaky breath. I know I screwed you over. I know I hurt you bad." I tipped my head a little. "Which bit, Denise? The lies? The double-cross? The plotting? The part where you weren't gonna stop till I caught you?" She flinched, 'cause that was the real deal, wasn't it? She wasn't sorry she did it, she was sorry I figured it out. She edged closer. "Daniel, please," she whispered, "I love you." I let out a slow breath, stood up, walked around the desk, stopped right in front of her, and dropped the hammer. "No, you don't, Denise." Her breath hitched, lips quivering. I kept going. "You never did, not the way that counts." Tears welled up in her eyes. "That ain't true." I cut her off sharp. "You loved what I gave you, the cushy life, the safety net, the whole damn show. But me, the guy, the husband, you checked out on me years ago. Maybe you never even checked in." She shook her head fast, stepping toward me. "No, that's wrong," I slipped up. I flashed that small, icy grin, the one that finally stopped her cold. "It wasn't a slip, Denise," I said quiet. "It was a choice. And now she had to deal with it." The boys who bet on the wrong horse, by the time I rolled home that evening, my sons were posted up waiting for me. Miles and Evan stood there in the living room, arms folded tight, faces dark and sour. I shut the door and propped myself against it, letting the quiet hang heavy. Then Miles finally piped up. "Dad, seriously," he said, voice wound tight, "ain't this going a bit overboard?" I didn't bite, just stared. He huffed. "Look, we get it, all right. Mom messed up big time. But you think trashing our lives is fair?" I arched a brow. "Trashing you?" I echoed, keeping my tone dead even. Evan snorted, shaking his head like I was dense. Yeah, Dad, we've got nothing now, no cash, no safety net, no damn future. I let that simmer in the air for a sec. Then I peeled off the door, stepped right up to M, and laid it out plain, welcome to the world you thought didn't need me. Miles' jaw clamped shut. Evan's throat bobbed. I tilted my head a touch. You figured I was just some fixture, huh? Just hanging around, optional, a walking ATM. And when you thought you'd lined up a new model, I let out a low, dry laugh. You tossed me aside like I was trash. They didn't say a word, 'cause they knew I'd nailed it. Now here they were, wanting me to mop up their mess, craving my money, my stability, my presence. Too bad, they'd picked their team. And I'd picked mine. Philip's last-ditch swing, should have seen it coming, that final, frantic Hail Mary. That night, as I was boxing up the last of my stuff, Philip rolled up and started pounding on my door. I swung it open, not even a little shocked. He stood there, a shell of a guy who'd lost it all, 'cause he had. Daniel, he rasped, voice rough as gravel, we gotta hash this out. I didn't budge, didn't wave him in, just stared him down. He blew out a sharp breath, scrubbing a hand over his face. I blew it, he mumbled. I know I did. But you obliterated me, man. My business, my rep, my whole damn life, gone. I let him ramble, let him dump his sob story, his flimsy excuses, his weak-ass tries to dodge the blame. Then I finally opened my mouth. Good. Philip blinked hard. What? I edged closer, voice dropping low. Good. I want you to feel it, losing everything, getting stabbed by somebody you trusted, watching the folks you gave a damn about turn their backs. He swallowed, throat working overtime. Daniel, I didn't mean, I shut him down cold. You did. And that's why I don't give a damn. His face went white. Right then, he got it, no fixing this, no mercy, no do-overs. I let the quiet stretch out, thick and final. Then I closed the door, locked it tight. Philip. He was already a ghost to me. The exit that wasn't really a farewell. Next morning, I stuffed my bags full. Had all I needed, my cash, my clout, my freedom. I wandered through the house one last time, fingers brushing the furniture, the walls, the scraps of a life that never really belonged to me. Then I walked out, no backward glance, leaving M in the dust for good. And the kicker? I didn't feel a lick of sadness or second-guessing. I felt light, free as hell, at last. I strolled into the hotel lobby, lighter than I'd been in years. The receptionist hit me with a crisp smile. Welcome, Mr. Lennox, your suite's all set. Thanks, I said, sliding over my card, the one Denise couldn't get her hands on. As she sorted my check-in, I peeked at my phone, 67 missed calls. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head with a smirk. They were still clawing, still scrambling to reel me back, still trying to glue together what was smashed beyond repair. Too late, though. For the first time in 19 years, I wasn't their puppet anymore. I was out. And they? Right where they belonged. The wreckage kicked off. By the next morning, their desperation hit fever pitch. I dodged their calls all night, but the messages kept piling up. Denise, Daniel, I'm on my knees here, just talk to me. Miles, Dad, come on, let's sit down and sort this out. Evan, we know we messed up, but we're still your blood. Martha, Denise's mom, Daniel, enough already, you've proved your damn point. That one almost got a laugh out of me. Proved my point. Nah, I wasn't done proving squat. I kicked back in my chair, sipping my coffee, watching their whole mess unravel from a safe distance. Denise crashed into the truth. Denise must have finally clocked how screwed she was when she hit the bank again, this time not just poking at those locked accounts, but scrambling to pull herself out of the hole. She begged for a loan, a last gasp grab to prop up the lie that her world wasn't caving in. But she should have seen it coming. The loan guy peeked at her file and saw a lady with zilch, no steady paycheck, no gig, no backbone of her own. She'd coasted too long on my dough, my rep, my pull. Now she had squat. So when the bank shot down her loan, she shuffled out, face blank and shattered. For the first time ever, she was really, truly empty-handed. The boys got a harsh lesson. Miles tried to fake his usual swagger. He rang up his school, barking for a tuition extension, wheeling, dealing, tossing my name around like it still carried weight. Thing is, my name wasn't his to swing anymore. The financial aid folks didn't give a damn about his sob story, just slapped him with a 7-day countdown, pay up or get lost. Evan, meanwhile, got his own gut check when he rolled up to service his ride, only to find out the payments had dried up. That's when it slammed home, that car wasn't his, I owned it. And now the repo crew was en route to snatch it back. I could picture his jaw dropping when he realized he wasn't the big shot he'd played at being. He'd spent years seeing me as a cash machine. Now he was learning what it's like without the plug. Philip hit rock bottom. Philip was sinking fast. He'd ridden high for years on my hookups, my clout, my handouts. He'd swiped my wife, my kids, my spot. Now he had nothing left. The second I cut the cord, his investors bolted like rats off a ship. His business was a rotting carcass. But the real twist? Lawsuits started piling up, angry clients he'd ripped off, overbilled, or flat-out conned, all folks who'd bought in 'cause I'd backed him. They were gunning for him now. Without my shield, he was toast. I could see him slumped at his desk, staring at a stack of legal papers, finally getting it. The guy he thought he'd shoved aside had crushed him flat. Good. Let him choke on it. The second they cracked, by day 3, the calls tapered off. The messages flipped from pissed-off rants to pitiful begging. They weren't barking orders or preaching reason anymore, they were groveling. That's when I knew I'd won. I'd snapped them in half. Sitting in my hotel suite, thumbing through their texts, I felt something I hadn't in forever, peace. 'Cause I was out. For the first time since I tied the knot with Denise, since I got suckered into playing the flawless husband and endless ATM, I wasn't their fallback, their plan B, their money bag. I was just me, and damn, I liked it. The last ring, it was Friday night when that final call buzzed in. I wasn't planning to pick up, but something, pure curiosity, not pity, made me grab it. Pressed it to my ear. Dead air. Then Denise's voice crept through, small and busted. Daniel. I didn't bite, just listened. She let out a shaky breath. I don't even know where to start. I took a pull from my drink. Then don't start. A beat of quiet. I gotta know. How'd we land here? I almost chuckled, she knew damn well. But I humored her. We got here the minute you decided I was disposable. A soft sob slipped out of her. Can't we fix it? She whispered. I shook my head, though she couldn't see. Nah, Denise, I said cool as ice, we're past that. More silence. Then her last stab, Daniel, I still love you. I grinned, slow, sharp, victorious. That's sweet, I said, but I don't love you. And with that, I hung up. The final win, I kicked back in my chair, stretching out. Outside the window, the city light sparkled, wide open, full of new shots to take. I was free. Them. They were floundering, gasping for air. But that wasn't my mess anymore, not by a long shot. I'd made my call. I'd walked away. And for the first time in 19 years, I was flat out, no apologies, straight up happy.